Okay, welcome back. This is Hannah with Spot On Dog Training, and this is part 2 of how to pick out a good dog daycare for your dog and some of the pros and cons of dog daycare. If you missed part 1, please go back and watch it. So we already talked about the pros and the cons. Now I'm actually going to walk you through a list of questions that you should have when you walk into the dog daycare, and if you don't like what you hear, pick a different place. So these are just examples of what I could think of off the top of my head. You might have some good ones too. So number 1, how do you do your temperament tests, and can I observe one? So a temperament test is basically how they make sure that your dog is a friendly dog and likes to play with other dogs and would be a good addition to their dog daycare group. So what you want to hear is something like, oh, we bring him into the room when there aren't any dogs there, and we make sure that he's okay with all the people handling him and that he comes when we call him, because they want to make sure that he'll listen. If there's a situation and they need to get him over quickly, it's good to know that he'll listen to them. So step 1 is just, how is he with the staff? Also, if he's super fearful of strangers, that's going to be a hard dog to have at a dog daycare, because they have to be able to reach for him and grab his collar and touch him and stuff without worrying about him panicking or them getting bitten. So they should say something like they introduce him to the dogs one at a time, not that they just let him into the group and see how it goes. That can be very overwhelming for a dog and can end in fights. So they should bring in the calmest, sweetest, most neutral dog, usually preferably of an opposite sex from your dog, first. Let the dogs sniff, let the dogs get to know each other. You want to look for play behaviors, not too many signs of stress, not that your dog is trying to hide and get away from the other dog, or that he's barking at the other dog, but that he's just happy and calm around him. And then they should start to bring in other dogs from the play group and work their way up to, finally, the last dog should be the one that's the most energetic, probably the same sex as your dog, and maybe the tensest one of the group. So there's always going to be dogs that are good with other dogs and like playing with them, but they need a lot of personal space, or they might be a little bit snarky, or those types of dogs. So that would be one of the last dogs that you would want to introduce to your dog, just to make sure that everybody gets along. So question number 2 that I would ask is, what do you guys do if the dogs get in a fight? So you should hear things like they have a specific protocol that they've trained their staff to do, that they know how to look for body language so they can tell early on if 2 dogs don't get along or if there's tension building up, and not that it's just out of the blue, like, whoa, these 2 dogs are at each other's throats and we had no clue because we were texting on our phones and not watching the dogs. They should watch for the body language. They should be able to anticipate and prevent fights, but let's say a fight does break out. They should have some sort of protocol for getting as many people there as possible right away. So there should be kind of people floating around in the facility that if a fight breaks out, they can stop what they're doing and run into the group and help out. You need someone who's keeping the other dogs away, because remember, this is a group of dogs. So if 2 dogs have beef with each other and they start fighting, the last thing you want is for 10 other dogs to jump in on the mix and get involved too. So there needs to be somebody who's kind of shooing the other dogs away and encouraging them to go to the other side of the room. And then you need to have at least, 2 people who are breaking up the 2 dogs who are fighting. And the best way they can do that is to grab the dogs by their back legs and lift straight up. So what this does is it prevents the dogs from being able to move around and go anywhere else with their fight. They're kind of just stuck there. A lot of dogs will let go right away if they're biting on, because they're just confused that now they're, the back half of their body's elevated into the air. It also protects the staff, because if they're holding on to the back legs of the dog, they can kind of pull back and turn the dogs around and get them separated, and the dogs, they won't have the leverage to be able to turn and bite the people. If they say something like, oh, we just go in and, we get our biggest, strongest guys to just go in and just grab the dogs by their necks and pull them apart, that's like the worst thing you could do. A, the people can get bit. B, if the dog's big and strong, they're not going to be able to pull the dogs apart. C, it tends to get them to just go at each other even more, so that's just not a good way to do it. You want to hear them say that they have stuff nearby, like within reaching distance for the staff in the playgroup, like Direct Stop, which is basically a citronella spray that you can spray that tends to get most dogs to stop what they're doing. Break sticks. Those are sticks that are designed to where you insert it into the dog's mouth and kind of just go like this, and it will get their jaws to open long enough that you can pull them apart. You want to hear that they completely check both dogs or all the dogs involved for injury afterwards, preferably with like a white paper towel or something so they can see if there's any blood anywhere, and that they will call you immediately if there's any injuries. And it's always good to have a vet on staff, a veterinarian that they can call that can be there quickly in case they're, you know, far away from a vet hospital or whatever. So, okay, so moving on. Number 3 would be I would ask them, how many dogs do you have in a play group at a time, and how do you separate them? So this is a really, really important one. So you'll have everything from some dog daycares that have 50 or 60 dogs of all temperaments and sizes, and you know, some are like elderly and others are puppies, and they'll all just be in one giant room together, and they'll have 2 or 3 staff members kind of milling about. That is probably the worst possible scenario. I wouldn't bring your dog to a place that's set up as like that. Normally the setup is where they have 2 or 3 different play areas, and they kind of separate the dogs by size. But if you think about it, if there's only 2 play groups and you're separating them by size, big and small, you're going to have a pretty wide range of dogs in each of those, because you can have, you know, a Neapolitan Mastiff that weighs 180 pounds or something, and then you can have, I don't know, a Greyhound, which would also be considered a large dog, but only weighs like 50 pounds. And then you have like Corgis, which might weigh like 30 pounds. And then you'll have like a teacup Poodle or a Maltese or something, which can be like 5 or 6 pounds. So how are you going to have a 5-pound dog in with a 40-pound dog and call that a good, you know, separation of size? So even if all the dogs are really sweet, it doesn't take much for an accident to happen. A dog falls over, a dog smashes another dog while he's playing something, and then you have an injured dog, especially dogs with long backs. Dachshunds, Corgis, Shih Tzus, these dogs that have long backs are prone to getting back injuries. So if they're playing with another dog, if there's play equipment in there and they're jumping on and off and things get rowdy, it doesn't take much for a golden retriever to do to a, you know, a miniature dachshund to hurt his back. So you don't want dogs like that in the same play group together. So make sure they can show you the play groups. They have at least 3, so they can have small, medium, large. But ideally it would be like small and shy, small and rambunctious. I don't know how to say that word, but you know what I mean. Medium and shy, medium and playful, large and shy, large and playful, so that they're not only separated by size, but by temperament. That would be ideal. Number 4 question you want to ask them is, what do you do if the dogs are misbehaving? So if my dog jumps on a staff member, is barking, jumps up onto the gate, is being too rowdy, humping another dog in his face, which is something you'll see a lot. Just, I don't know, doggy stuff. What are you going to do if my dog is being naughty? So you want to avoid the answer of, oh, we just yell no and spray them in the face. They should have other options available. The staff should be more savvy about behavior and training and stuff like that. A timeout area would be awesome. So if they had an area where they could warn your dog, hey, Max, you know, knock that off. And if Max doesn't knock it off, he gets put in the timeout area. That would be a really effective method at a daycare. So that would be ideal. But the smaller the group size, the easier it is to manage the dogs. Number 5 is I would ask them, especially if you're one of those people who's thinking about having your dog at daycare all day long from like 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. or something, how is it set up so that your dog can have some private space? Because dogs don't want to play for 12 hours straight, and they're just like us. They don't want to be around a bunch of other dogs nonstop with no rest or break. There needs to be a way that when dogs want to take a nap, when they want to rest, when they want to relax, when they want to get off their feet, that they can walk away from a play group and escape somewhere and go curl up on a little bed or something and relax and get their feet off of the hard surface for a little while. So look around in their play group and ask them, you know, do you do nap times with the dogs or give them breaks, and just see what they say. The dog should be able to escape and relax and get away from the group if he wants to, and not constantly be in the middle of all these dogs running around. Number 6, how do you prevent diseases? So You want to hear that they require proof of vaccination, or at least proof of titers of vaccination. If you don't know what a titer is, Google it. You want to make sure the place smells clean and looks clean when you're in there. You want to ask them what kind of floor cleaner they use. There's a bunch of different ones out there. There's like Simple Green and what's the name of that one? Rocal. So you want to make sure that it's one that kills parvovirus, kills viruses and bacteria, but is not going to be super toxic to your dog. So if they mop up the floor and your dog walks over and then he licks his paw, that he's not going to get sick. Number 7 would be the staff. How are they trained? What kind of experience with dogs do they have? What's their experience? What do you do as a business to make sure that your staff stays up to date with like dog behavior and training and how to be a good dog daycare attendant, I guess. And then number 8, the last one that I could think of anyways today, is where do the dogs go potty? And if it's an indoor space only, do they have it set up somehow that at least seems like it's more outside? I've seen some places that have like fluorescent lights in one little corner of the room, and they at least try to make it seem like it's a separate space so the dogs that go potty there at least feel like they're making an effort. Otherwise, if it's just a bunch of dogs peeing and pooping around on the floor in a small space, that could be a bad thing. Just think about it, especially if you've had to put a lot of effort into potty training your dog. So, yeah, so those are the questions that I would ask, and you want to hear some good answers and some details. And if they don't let you take a tour, if they won't let you watch your dog get introduced to other dogs and observe the temperament test, if there's any part of the building they aren't willing to show you, Basically, if they're doing things right and they're proud of their business, they should be inviting you in with open arms and saying, yes, please come watch the dogs play, watch a temperament test, watch where we board them, all this stuff. They should want to show you every corner of their place to show you how clean and awesome their place is. So if there's anything they don't want to show you, that's a red flag. So anyways, I hope this was educational and you enjoyed it, and good luck on your search for a good dog daycare, and that's it.